Would you agree that Justin Trudeau has indeed softened his stance in the sense that he really now wants to see the back of this episode because it wasn't really helping him or his government?
Well, it sure hasn't worked. The whole world and Canadians too are all waiting to see if he really has the goods.
Yes.
And we don't understand why he hasn't produced the evidence. I would differ with you, though, to some degree. I don't think this is a new line. Long ago, Canada decided that it needed India as an ally and as a friend and explored better trade ties and a free trade agreement. Of course, now that's all out the window, and naturally, Mr. Trudeau wants to salvage it. But it's not really a change of tune. It's simply a change of emphasis that we want to listen to the news, obviously, and the news in what he has been saying lately has been the accusation that India has been involved in murder on Canadian soil. And now we're back to the long-term background of the effort by the Trudeau government to court India and to be its friend. Well, whether that's
Terry,
even
just
possible,
sorry, I'm interrupting you just for a brief minute. Just to press on this point.
Go ahead.
Just to press on this point, now I agree with what you're saying that Canada did in fact recently unveil an Indo-Pacific strategy of which India is a very important part. So yes, the long-term Canadian vision may have been to build stronger ties with India, and that's not rocket science. But Trudeau's actions were not so. One, making this public allegation, expelling an Indian diplomat, outing that diplomat's name, putting their security at risk, not really acting when there were, tableaus of Indira Gandhi's assassination being paraded in Canada, or when there were posters coming up of threats to Indian diplomats. So I'm just putting that in perspective. Yes. The actions were not matching that philosophy of building a stronger tie with India. And maybe what Justin Trudeau is doing now is, okay, let me stop harping on Nijjar. That's not helping me. Let me instead focus on what we can do together.
Yes, and that's reasonable. But it's also reasonable, isn't it, that I think the point you're making is that Canada can't have it both ways. Both that we're your friend, let's have a free trade agreement, and at the same time we're going to accuse you of murder. Yes. It's very difficult to carry out. You got to pick a lane. Well, you flip it around if you can. Flip it around and imagine that it emerged that Trudeau knew that this kind of activity was going on and didn't say anything because he was after a free trade agreement. When that came out, he'd be in some trouble, I think. I think the Canadians would say, well, he would have been attacked, I think, I hope, if he found out that such crimes were going on at the hands of a foreign government, any foreign government, and didn't say anything because he thought, well, we mustn't jeopardize our trade ties, so let them come to our country and murder people. I don't think that's a plausible scenario at all. I think he wants to have it both ways, but in order to have any progress at all on a better relationship with India, we all know that Canada has to be much more serious about addressing India's concerns about the growth, the toleration, and the pandering to Khalistani extremists in Canada. Something has to change on that front, and soon. Then these remarks about our wonderful future relationship with India, that might come true, but not before.
Yes, and Pinak Ranjan Chakravarty, I want you to weigh in on this. Teddy has hit the nail on the head. You can't have it both ways. You cannot publicly embarrass India, try to embarrass India, drag them through the mud without any evidence that you're willing to present in the public domain, even if he did it for political reasons, where, let's say, pressure was building on him back home, where he needed to say something. He could have chosen a better way to do it. It could have been not maybe in the House of Commons, but outside in a press conference. It could have been by a diplomat or a foreign affairs, a member, then the Prime Minister himself. And certainly they didn't need to expel an Indian diplomat in the manner that they did. But if he really wants to walk the talk with India of good relationships, as he's talking about, there's a lot of mending to do. And the first thing you need to do is show us the proof that you're acting on Khalistani sympathizers in Canada.
Well, all this has been said, and my own personal view is that Canada has been ignoring India's requests for action on the Khalistanis and the gangsters and terrorists for the last 40 years. Ever since Canadians blew up Air India 182 and killed 329 people, Canadians themselves investigated and realized that they had ignored every intelligence that was available. and all the killers went scot-free. You look at the commission report, if you read it, it is horrifying.
Yes.
That a responsible government, which Canada claims to be, a democracy, liberal, etc., etc., this is what they did. We haven't forgotten that. Indians don't forget. We are the elephant, we have long memories. And then thereafter, all these Khalistanis have been going there. Justin Trudeau is very right that Canadians murdered in Canada is not acceptable. For India, Canadians murdering Indians in Punjab and elsewhere is also not acceptable. And what have you done about it? And then he talks about intelligence, credible allegations, etc., using sweet phrases like that, which mean nothing. And then he says that we have simply made allegations. Where's the proof? You say you have SIGINT and HUMINT, that is signal intelligence and human intelligence. Okay, forget the human intelligence because that will compromise their human sources. But where is the SIGINT? Is it a telephone call from somebody to somebody that go and kill this guy? Or is it simply a conversation saying, oh, this guy has been killed? I mean, I can speculate on and for hours. It doesn't help because unless you give evidence, you want us to cooperate. I think EM has said so.
Yes.
We are willing to look at the evidence. But this kind of, public gimmickry is not going to help.
Do you think India has very rightly put that message across that they're not going to stand for this? And that is one of the reasons that Canada has had to backtrack a little bit, because this is not the same India that was refused the extradition of Parmar on flimsy grounds that India doesn't consider the royal monarch as the constitutional head.
Well, I know that that's an old story. We all know that. And I mean, what an argument. I mean, all I can say, I don't want to use strong words, but I've been in diplomacy for 40 years and I've dealt with Canada also during my time, I think. And I know how they behave. In fact, their kind of moral preaching that we used to get once in a while. And we ignored it, thinking that, it's okay, it's in their DNA to talk like that. We will do our business and let's get on with it. So, but now it's not possible to get on and business as usual, because they have gone out on a limb. Trudeau particularly has gone out on a limb and he has to walk back. Okay. And unless he produces proof, and we are willing to look at it, as we said, we were friendly nations. I'm saying were because I don't know how long we will remain friendly. But I think this could have been sorted out in a better way, in a diplomatic way. Yes. Why make shout from the pulpit about these things? If you are a mature nation, you do these things quietly. You get your people to come, and then they say, our intelligence people went to Delhi, they exchanged notes. Our people told them, look, this is not evidence. And moreover, I will end with this. That 3 months or 4 months have passed. What have we done about the investigation? Why haven't they been able to catch the killers? Why haven't they interrogated them? They haven't caught them, so there's no question of interrogating or questioning them. They have nothing.
Yes, it's very difficult to build the case that they're wanting to build just on the basis of trust me. Because, I'm a first world country and I know it, and you must take my word for it.
We are a Western white nation and you should trust me.
Exactly. Those days have gone.